is the Auburn Podcast, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast, presented by Auburn Undercover and ESPN 106.7. Zac Blackerby here with you. I'm now joined by Keith Niebuhr, Auburn Undercover recruiting expert. Keith, how are you today, man?
I'm good, man. I always laugh when somebody calls me an expert, though. I don't know if you can be an expert in the recruiting business because there's so many unknown variables, a lot of guesswork involved. But it's always good to talk to you, man.
Hey, your track record's pretty. It's definitely up there, my man.
It is. I think you just do the best. I think you just do the best you can with the information given to you, and then also, a lot of times, Jack, you're just kind of reading the tea leaves. I mean, if a guy's made 9 visits to Auburn in the 2-month period and hasn't been anywhere else, you can kind of put two and two together and don't have to be a genius. You know what I mean? That's fair.
Well, hey, you called the two last week. Kind of give us a breakdown of what went down there.
Yeah, well, first off, Thursday, big commitment for Auburn from a 3-star defensive end, Colby Wooden, out of Archer High School in the Lawrenceville, Georgia area. That's about 45 minutes northeast of Atlanta, northeast. And, again, we talked about this last week, but I got to bring it up again. He's a 3-star. However, both Auburn and Clemson had made him a high priority. And when you look at the recruiting on the defensive line of those two schools, it makes you think, okay, he's got to be pretty good. Forget about the ranking. If those two schools, which have done so well with their evaluations on the defensive line, think highly of him, then that should say something. So they land Colby Wooden over Clemson, Auburn does, 6'4", 241 pounds. And I've always thought that he would end up playing on the strong side, but he told me, hey, I may end up being a weak side defensive end. So I guess he's thinking maybe he won't put on too much more weight, but he's got that frame, 6'3", 6'4", where he could easily be 275, 280 pounds. We'll have to see how he grows. That'll determine where he ends up. But he's got some quick twitch skills. He's got some great change of direction, and really change of direction and 10-yard burst type things are what college coaches really love out of their defensive linemen. And what does it really matter what a defensive end 100-time is or 40-time? But what can he do in those short bursts? And can he go one way and then turn around and go the other way really quick and tackle somebody or be disruptive on a play? And I think Auburn feels really good from what I'm told about landing Colby Wooden. He's an outstanding player, another high-character guy. I mean, you never know what's going to happen once somebody gets on campus. But at this stage of his life, he's done all the right things on and off the field. He's a good student. I can't remember. I think he may want to study computer science, but it was great to be there. I was the only media person there for his announcement. We ran it live, a live stream, and it got a lot of traffic. And I can say his family was very excited, and his entire team was extremely supportive of his decision. A big moment for Colby Wooden and the Archer program. Now, then a day later, Zion Puckett is a guy that Auburn lands at the cornerback position. 4-star kid. He picked Auburn over Alabama, where, yes, he was a take. Tennessee, Ohio State. In fact, Ohio State really made him a high priority. So that was a really big get as well when you look at who Auburn beat out for Zion Puckett. He's 6 feet, about 200 pounds, very fast, sub 4 or 5 second, 40-yard time, all over the place. So very fast, good closing speed. For his high school team, he has to play safety, and there's a big difference between playing safety and corner. Now, I think the good news is when he gets to Auburn, you can pretty much put him anywhere and he'll thrive, but Auburn does see him as a cornerback. And, about his personality a little bit, he didn't want a big deal to be made of it. He had an option to announce at a pep rally that day leading up to his team's big game last Friday against their crosstown rivals. And he said, no, thanks, and invited me to the school. We put together a little video and sent it out, and he was happy with that. He's a very, I don't know what the word is, unassuming young guy, a happy-go-lucky kid, and he's going to study engineering at Auburn, or plans to. So 2 big pickups. These guys can really play. They're good students. They seem to fit in with the kind of low-key culture that Auburn has. It's not like a real, when I say Auburn, I mean the Auburn football program. It's not like a program full of guys that you would consider party animals. It's the kind of the opposite of the football team in Revenge of the Nerds. I mean, these guys are a little bit more low-key. Now, that doesn't mean certain people can't be party animals or certain guys can't get in trouble.
Right.
But by and large, when I study recruits and when I'm looking at these recruits, it's a lot of the quieter types that end up at Auburn, at least in my 5+ years covering the Tigers. Kind of an interesting trend that you see there. But two outstanding players, that's the most important thing if you're an Auburn fan. You want to know, hey, can these guys play? Can they contribute? And I think they can, and I think they will.
So, Keith, I guess the next question here is, who's next?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer, but I think my gut says it could be any day now. I really think Auburn's got a good chance to flip a young man by the name of Ladarius Knight from Tennessee. Now, he's a defensive tackle from McGill Tulin down in Mobile, Alabama. Committed to Tennessee, I believe, April 4th, but it was in April. Visited Auburn twice over the summer, and Auburn had two big recruiting events over the summer, Big Cat Weekend and then the AU Barbecue. He was at both of those events, and Auburn seemed to make a big move. Mobile kid, committed to Tennessee, but Auburn right down the road, basically. I like Auburn's chances. I don't know much about him as a player. I've only seen a little bit of film, and he's going to play that. He play that position, the defensive tackle, the inside guy, the guy that's closer to the center. So those guys don't make a lot of tackles. Those guys aren't in the backfield a lot. A lot of times they're having to take on two men, two blockers to kind of free up the tackle next to them. It's kind of the role that you see from Dontavius Russell,
right.
And I guess Tyrone Truesdale is going to play for Auburn. So a guy that on film isn't really going to flash too much because they're often taking on two guys. But big kid, 6'4", 280-ish, 290, 300 in that range. I mean, he's a big kid. He's a tackle all the way. Rodney Garner has identified him as the guy he wants. And again, I think, Rodney Garner isn't 100 out of 100. I mean, nobody is, okay? But I think when you look at his track record, he's pretty good, okay? He's pretty doggone good about evaluating guys. Some guys blossom quickly, some guys don't, okay? Byron Coward's a 5-star defensive end. Actually, that was more of a Will Muschamp pickup when he was the defensive coordinator at Auburn. He never really blossomed at Auburn. Then you take a look at a guy like Devereaux Lawrence, who Auburn offered out of junior college, where he was a walk-on at junior college, and now he's making plays in the NFL. So,
right.
Again, Rodney Garner's track record speaks for itself. You can't hit them all, but he hits a lot of them, and he really likes this kid. And I know that they want him on board. And Auburn has 3 defensive linemen committed: Colby Wooden, who we talked about earlier, along with I'm going to forget the names, Jamon Gordon out of Meridian, Mississippi, and Jaron Handy out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, who had a big game the other night in the season opener. So this would be the 4th one if they can get him. It means probably they will only take one more, unless you could get an elite guy. You always hold a spot just in case some 5-star monster calls you at the last minute and says they want in. You know
right.
what I mean?
Sure.
But I think I'd be on the lookout for Ladarius Knight. We've been writing about him for a few weeks now. I think Auburn's got a real chance to flip him from Tennessee. Real good chance, I think.
So, Keith, big Friday coming up locally as a lot of the high school games high school seasons kind of get going. You can kind of plan on being anywhere Friday night to watch any particular target or commit?
I don't know where I'm going to be Friday yet. Obviously I live in Atlanta. Because people always ask me, why do you live in Atlanta? Well, the recruits don't live in Auburn, as you know. There's
right.
not many. It's just not a heavily populated area. There are good recruits there, but as a whole, I'm better off in a more highly populated area, especially Atlanta, which is, Auburn's bread and butter. But I haven't just figured out where I'm going to go Friday. Some weeks I don't go at all. I mean, high school football, sometimes it's hit or miss, and I've asked some college coaches about this. A friend of mine coaches in the SEC and used to be an NFL coach. And I say, man, how do you go to these high school games? I mean, you coached at the highest level. How can you drop down to watching high school football? He says, it's not easy because they're so used to seeing guys at a high level, and you go to a high school game and there may be one legitimate recruit in that game. So it's tough for them, and just like it is for me. I don't
right.
have ties to any of these programs. So I'm looking for the games that have the most guys that I'll enjoy watching play. So I don't know, but Saturday I will tell you I'm going to be in the Hoover area to watch Pinson Valley play Hoover. That's Bo Nix, the quarterback commit for Auburn, for Pinson Valley versus Hoover, which will have just a ton of guys,
sure,
including Auburn receiver commit George Pickens, who quite frankly probably is one of the 2 or 3 best receivers or most talented receivers in the country. And then I think the second half of that doubleheader is Hewitt Trustville, which has an Auburn commit, wide receiver Javaris Johnson, and a bunch of Bama commits versus Cedar Grove High School, which is one of the schools over here in Atlanta. And who does that school have? Jaden Hazelwood, 5-star Georgia receiver commit, who Auburn is still recruiting. So I know I'm going to be there. At least I think I will be.
Sure.
But Friday night, I'm not sure just yet. Yeah, sometimes you'll look at the schedule Friday morning and just say, all right, let's go take a look at this game. Or you'll see what's on TV, and maybe an Auburn commit or an Auburn target's on TV, and it's just as beneficial for you to sit home and watch it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Mainly, I'm going to get interviews, but if a kid loses, sometimes they don't want to do interviews. Usually most of them are cool. Mm-hmm. Sometimes coaches get on you a little bit, but most of those guys are pretty cool too.
Yeah. You mentioned Hazelwood, and I'm still seeing a lot of tweets from Auburn folks about him. What's the latest you've heard about Hazelwood?
Yeah, I mean, Auburn's got a shot, and so does Miami. It just seems like he's just having fun with his recruitment a little bit. But I do think he's going to watch Georgia closely this season. And one thing we know about Georgia is they got a lot of running backs. Even, sadly, one of their guys that was probably going to get a lot of carries this year, Zamir White, tore his ACL.
God, you hate to see that, man.
Absolutely. And having covered him in high school, a good kid, friendly. I was up to his school twice in North Carolina. And just a friendly kid. I mean, you know why you hate to see it more than anything? Because, you get to know these kids on a personal level, and they have dreams. And, gosh, every ACL injury, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is like his second one. You start thinking, okay, is he cursed? Is he just going to be broken? Is he going to have one of the – I mean, Bo Jackson never met his full potential, not to compare this kid to Bo, but Bo Jackson never met his full potential. I mean, Bo Jackson's one of the greatest players ever. He has no chance of making the NFL Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. He never didn't play in enough games. His body kept breaking on him, which is a shame because that same body was so unbelievably powerful. So, you feel bad for him. And then the families, you know what I mean, that they put so much into these kids. And I do think that part of it is sad because of some of the families, and I'm not saying it's in this case, but rely so heavily on these kids to get to the NFL that they're devastated when it doesn't happen. Well, you can't do that either. I mean, you know what I mean? You have good grades and you do well in school, you can be successful no matter what you're doing. But anyway, with Georgia, back to Georgia, they're probably they've got a lot of running backs, and they've got a returning quarterback, and they got a lot of receivers. So are they going to run the ball more, or are they going to throw the ball? What are they going to do? Jaden Hazelwood wants to know. He wants to know the school he's going to is going to throw the ball a lot. Well, so he's going to be taking a close look at Miami, which probably, again, is going to have some quarterback issues. He's going to take a look at Auburn, which has Jarrett Stidham. So he'll probably put up big numbers. However, he's going to be gone after this season. Then he's going to look at Georgia and say, what do these two young quarterbacks the Bulldogs have? Can they throw the ball? Can they get me the ball downfield, which he really likes? So he's going to be watching all three of those teams closely. And I know people say Oklahoma as well. He has officially visited there, but I just don't think he's going to go that far away to home. We'll see. I mean, theoretically, Miami's not much closer than Oklahoma is from Orlando, but it just seems like it's going to be one of those three. And I'd put 80% chance on him sticking with Georgia. But, he's visited Auburn 4 times this year. His mother made it over once on her own. He's going to be back for a game or two. He's given Auburn a shot. Okay, if Auburn goes out and throws for 3,500 yards, and they say, okay, well, even though Jarrett Stidham's leaving, Bo Nix is coming in, so they can still say, hey, they're still going to throw the ball a lot. And he knows Bo Nix really well, the Auburn quarterback commit, because they were 7-on-7 teammates this summer for Cam Newton's 7-on-7 squad, and at that big Nike event, the opening in Dallas. So, they know each other really well. So that can't hurt. He's friends with George Pickens. I mean, I think Auburn in the conversation. There's no question about it. But
sure.
Once a guy commits, it's hard to flip him,
Yeah.
And by the way, and I'm talking about Auburn flipping a kid just a few minutes ago. That's a little bit different situation. He's a kid from Alabama. Mobile's a lot closer to Auburn than it is Knoxville, Tennessee. Jaden Hazelwood's from Atlanta. He's got former teammates at Georgia. He committed to Georgia real early. Georgia's got a lot of recruiting momentum. So there's a lot of things working against Auburn, but a lot of things working in favor of Auburn, too.
Keith, you just kind of mentioned this, and it's almost kind of become assumed that Bo Nix is going to be the quarterback immediately after Jarrett Stidham. Despite all this hype about Joey Gatewood and Malik Willis, and I know you have a relationship with Bo Nix. I know you talk to him from time to time.
Yeah.
Does he ever say anything about that, possibly coming in right away and starting as a true freshman?
Really. No, not really, and he hasn't been promised anything. I can assure you that you'd have to be an absolute moron to promise a kid coming out of high school that you're going to be the starter. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You really don't know what you're going to get. I think he just wants to compete for the job, and he likes the situation coming in where, Jarrett Stidham most likely, we all think he'll be gone after this year. We have to see what happens, though. But if that's the situation, and again, everybody thinks that's probably likely, then there'll be a bunch of guys that are not guys that have started before, and I think he feels like he'll have a shot. And he'll be getting there in December or January. He's an early enrollee, so theoretically he could get there for bowl practices. And if Auburn's in a bowl, I mean, you never really know. Mm-hmm. If Auburn's in a decent bowl game late in the year, he could go up in there for bowl practices, and they put him in shorts and a helmet and let him run around it. But, just kind of experience it. But he would be there for the bulk of spring practice, and then all next year he runs an almost identical offense. He's a coach's kid. He's got that kind of X factor to him, or it factor, excuse me. So I think he's going in with the expectation he's going to compete for the job, and whatever happens, happens. But I think as a guy that believes in his abilities, I'm sure he thinks he's got as good a shot as anybody. That's probably about as far as he would take it. He's a very humble kid, I have to say. I mean, he loves Auburn. He wants to do his best, but he knows he's not dumb. He knows he's got to get there, and it's a big difference. I mean, it's a big difference in how long it's going to take for him to adjust to the speed of the linemen coming out of him. The defenses are going to be running a lot of different things that he's never seen before. So there's going to be a learning curve, no question about it. Now, one thing working in whoever Auburn's quarterback favor will be next year's, most likely almost everybody on the offensive line will be back, and most of the receivers will be back. So they're going to, and the running backs. So whereas running backs a little bit more of an uncertainty, a little bit more of a question mark this year, next year you'll have a lot more known variables at the running back position. So whoever comes in, I think that it's kind of like Georgia last year. I wouldn't say as much. You don't have, Sonny Michel and the other kid, Nick Chubb, but a little bit similar situation that you've got all these pieces around the quarterback and make it a little bit more comfortable. If you're going to have a big quarterback change and you're going to have a new dude come in and start, it's probably a good thing. The most ideal of a non-ideal situation would be that you've got all these pieces around him. But I think both think he'll come in and compete for that starting job. I personally think he'll end up winning it. Look, I don't know the answer to that. I know who he is. I know what kind of player he is, and that's all. And that's not diminishing the other guys at all.
Yeah. Keith, we're less than 2 weeks away from the start of Auburn's football season, and obviously week one they're in Atlanta taking on Washington. Yeah. I know the rules are different from a recruiting standpoint, but I assume there will be some commits and targets that are at that game. Have you heard from any? Yeah. Do you know of any that will be at that game?
Yes. I didn't mean to cut you off, Zach. A few. I haven't reached out to a ton of them yet, to be honest with you. But look, you can give a kid a ticket to a game, to that game, but you can't. If they have to sit in the stands, it's unlike at Auburn. They can't be down on the field before the game. They cannot be in the locker room to meet with Gus Malzahn. They can't be on the sidelines, but they can go to the game. And look, it's going to be a game with two top 10 teams. Who wouldn't want to be there? I can tell you, some of the important guys that are going to be there are some younger guys. Auburn's got 15 guys committed now. You'd expect a lot of them to be there unless they live in Mississippi or something and it's a far drive. But two young guys to keep an eye on. 2020 running back Roydell Williams of Hueytown, Alabama, says he's probably going to be there. Now, he's Auburn's likely number one running back target for next year. So, driving over from Birmingham for that game, that's a pretty good sign, especially for a kid who grew up a Bama fan and has Bama all over him as well. Okay. 2021, now a lot of people don't want to talk about these younger kids, but man, Auburn already has 5 2020 commitments. I mean, the process is accelerating now. Everything's speeding up. Guys are doing things a little bit earlier, so you have to. And then at the quarterback position, 2021, he's only a sophomore. Brock Vandegrift out of Bogart, Georgia, Prince Avenue Christian, he's going to be there. Now, why should you care about him? Because I think he's probably the top quarterback target for Auburn in the country in the class of 2021. Not only that, he's got an Auburn offer. He threw for 260 yards the other night, ran for another 90-something. But his mother went to Auburn, and he grew up attending Auburn home games. He's going to be at that game, plus at least 2 Auburn home games this year. Now, they want to get out and see 3 other schools that they mentioned, Georgia, North Carolina, and I can't remember what the other one was. Maybe, Clemson, I think. But I think that maybe only one game each of those schools. He's going to see Auburn play 3 times at a minimum, and potentially could be at the Auburn-Georgia game in Athens. So while that's a trip for Georgia, or a good trip for Georgia to host them, he'll get to watch Auburn if he's at that one. So that's really a guy to keep an eye on. And Auburn is really, it sounds like, really plans to recruit this young man extremely hard over the next couple of years.
Keith, thank you so much for your time today, man. I appreciate it.
Man, you ain't got to thank me. You're the one doing all the work. But
I don't know, man.
You talking about Auburn recruiting. Hey, look, man, I think people are excited about the team, and when they're excited about the team, it leads to more excitement about recruiting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, recruiting can pick you up after a bad season, no question about it. But right now, everybody's excited about Auburn football, and this is an extension of that. So it's been a fun summer. Auburn has kicked a little bit of butt on the recruiting trail. Missed on one guy, but pretty much landed all the other guys that they thought they were going to get. A couple guys are still waiting. But it's been a good summer. Auburn's got the number 10 recruiting class in the country right now. They weren't even anywhere near the top 10 this time a year ago. So they're doing good things.
Right. Where can people find all your stuff, man?
Yeah, at Auburn Undercover, man. That's the only place to go. Or on Twitter at Keith247Sports. But usually that's just me linking to things or my pathetic commentary on everything from the British Open to the best 80s songs. So you're going to get the juice at Auburn Undercover. You're going to get my garbage on my Twitter account, to be honest with you.
Thanks, Keith. I appreciate it.
Yeah, see you, man. Thanks, man.
Good stuff from Keith. As always, we will see you tomorrow. This has been another edition of the Auburn Podcast.